For decades, Germany has been the dominant economic powerhouse in Europe, driving growth and innovation while overshadowing its neighbours. But recent years have exposed deep cracks in its foundation. A struggling economy, an energy crisis, and demographic challenges have left Germany in decline. Meanwhile, one country is quietly reaping the rewards: Poland. Over the past 30 years, Poland has transformed from a post-communist economy into one of Europe's fastest-growing success stories. And now, as Germany stumbles, Poland is thriving, attracting investment, industry, and wealth at an unprecedented rate. So how did this dramatic shift happen? And what does it mean for the future of the largest economy in Europe? A century ago, Poland was mostly an agrarian economy with just a handful of industrial hubs. Landlocked to the south by the towering Tatra Mountains and open to the Baltic Sea in the north, the country was geographically poised for trade, yet it struggled under outdated agricultural practices and limited infrastructure. Then World War II shattered the nation. Warsaw lay in ruins, and by 1945, Poland was absorbed into the Soviet command economy. Industry became an extension of Moscow's demands, stifling innovation under rigid central planning. By the 1970s, the economy sputtered under debt, fuel shortages, and inflated wages, setting the stage for the Solidarity movement in 1980. As protests mounted, Poland faced a choice: cling to Soviet-era stagnation or embrace radical reform. In 1990, the government unleashed shock therapy, abolishing price controls, slashing subsidies, and pushing privatization almost overnight. The transition was brutal. GDP and industrial output collapsed, and unemployment soared to such an extent that 1 in 7 Poles lost their jobs. Yet, even as the economy appeared to languish, inflation did the impossible, plummeting from a ruinous 250% in 1990 to a mere 10% by 2000. With annual GDP growth humming at 4% throughout the 90s, Warsaw sprouted skyscrapers, modernizing with staggering speed. Then came the 2008 financial crisis. While Europe staggered, Poland stood firm, the only EU nation to dodge recession. The seeds planted during those harsh transitions in the 1990s and early 2000s have borne fruit, setting the stage for Poland to capitalize on opportunities that arise when bigger economies like Germany come crashing. Germany, often touted as Europe's economic locomotive, is showing worrying signs of decay. Take for instance the forecasts for German GDP in 2025, hovering between a meager 0.0% and 1.1%. These paltry projections mark a stark contrast to the robust German growth patterns of the 2010s. Industry surveyed by the German Economic Institute paint an even grimmer picture. 31 out of 49 industry associations are now rating their current situation worse than a year ago. Global factors like weak Chinese demand, disruptions in worldwide supply chains, and an uncertain geopolitical climate have collided to stall exports, long considered Germany's backbone. Simultaneously, Germany finds itself grappling with policies that investors perceive as increasingly stifling. The tax burden on average earners is among the highest in the Organization for Economic Cooperation and Development. Then there's the labour market's pressure. Unemployment nudged up to 6.4% at the start of 2025, with nearly 3 million unemployed, its highest level in a decade. In a climate where energy costs, labour costs, and bureaucracy are ballooning, many German firms are simply no longer competitive on the global stage. This slump in competitiveness has triggered a surge in company insolvencies, edging uncomfortably close to levels last seen during the 2009 financial crisis at around 1,300 to 1,400 insolvencies per month. Not even Germany's mighty export sector is immune. Exports have now declined for 2 consecutive years, slipping 1% in 2024 after a 2023 drop, while imports fell even more at 2.8%. A shrinking trade surplus for the second year straight reveals how the once solid pillars of German manufacturing have eroded. Automotive exports, long the jewel in Germany's industrial crown, are set to tumble even further if new tariffs from the United States come into effect. Projections suggest a 15% reduction in overall exports to the US, including a catastrophic 32% drop for cars and a 35% slump in pharmaceuticals. Meanwhile, German policymakers appear paralyzed, partly due to the collapse of the traffic light coalition government, which has cast uncertainty on future reforms. Promised growth initiatives are on hold. Budget constraints, a shortage of skilled workers, and insufficient investment in digital infrastructure keep Germany locked in a cycle of stagnation. Germany's once mighty industrial heartland is slowing, factories closing and businesses searching for alternatives. And right next door, Poland is stepping up, attracting the investment, talent and industries that once fueled Germany's dominance. Poland's economy is charging ahead, buoyed by favorable policies and a strategic geographic location right at the heart of Central Europe. Having weathered the early post-communist turbulence with shock therapy reforms, Poland emerged with an adaptive framework that invites foreign direct investment. Companies that might once have automatically chosen Germany are now looking eastward to Poland's cities, Wrocław, Poznań, and the Tri-City area of Gdansk, Gdynia, and Sopot. The reasons are compelling: modern infrastructure, a well-educated workforce, and lower operating costs compared to Western Europe. Even during the economic uncertainty of recent years, Poland's GDP growth rates have often outpaced European averages. Though global slowdowns have trimmed expansions in general, Poland has managed annual growth rates anywhere between 2.5% and 4.7% in past years, placing it among the fastest risers in the EU. By the mid-2010s, Warsaw had become one of Europe's most dynamic financial centers, attracting banks and tech firms looking to establish Central European headquarters. Foreign capital was drawn by competitive tax incentives, robust domestic consumption, and the sense that Poland's government, for all its internal political debates, was committed to staying in lockstep with EU markets regulations. Moreover, Poland offers distinct logistical advantages. It has direct access to the Baltic Sea in the north, enabling trade routes through the port of Gdansk, one of the fastest growing cargo hubs in Europe. Road and rail improvements have bridged the distance between Warsaw and Berlin to under 6 hours by car, and that gap is shrinking with each new infrastructure project. The southwestern city of Wrocław lies less than 190 miles from Germany's industrial belt, making cross-border supply chains and just-in-time deliveries highly efficient. Such proximity is crucial for companies wanting immediate market access throughout the continent, without the higher wage and tax obligations that come with a German address. On the human capital side, Poland's robust education system churns out graduates in engineering, IT, and business. Cities like Kraków, anchored by the centuries-old Jagiellonian University, produce a steady flow of skilled professionals. With wages still below Western European levels, multinational corporations see value in investing here, especially in high-tech manufacturing and services. Poland's workforce is also demographically younger on average than Germany's, which fights a declining birth rate and an aging population. This demographic advantage has helped Poland become a magnet for outsourcing, nearshoring, and corporate expansions that rely on a steady stream of well-trained employees. Consider the success stories in automotive parts, shipbuilding, aviation components, and advanced business services. Poland's special economic zones offer tax breaks that lure in large manufacturers, from electronics to aerospace. These zones, spread across regions like the Katowice Special Economic Zone in Silesia, dovetail with robust local supply networks and newly constructed highways, creating an environment ripe for both domestic and foreign investors. While Germany grapples with supply chain disruptions and lukewarm global demand, Poland is consistently sharpening its competitive edge. As a result, capital that might have bankrolled new factories along the Rhine is fueling expansions along the Vistula instead. According to data from Circular Economy Indicators Coalition (CEIC), Poland's upward momentum is more than anecdotal. An especially telling figure comes from foreign direct investment flows tracked since the mid-2010s. As of the latest tallies, Poland pulled in billions of euros in new manufacturing and tech sector investments, even when Germany's flows started to plateau. Notably, from 2020 to 2024, its net FDI inflows stayed on an overall rising trend, while Germany's began to fluctuate, eventually slumping under the weight of lower investor confidence. Poland's unemployment rate generally stays well below Germany's once cyclical pattern spike. In the early 2020s, Poland's unemployment hovered around 6 to 7%, but then dipped consistently as the economy stabilized. Meanwhile, Germany's rose to 6.4% at the start of 2025, the worst in a decade. This difference is symbolic of Poland's ability to generate jobs at a time when German industries are shedding them. The drop in Germany's new orders in manufacturing, around 5.4% in November 2024, compared to the previous month, speaks volumes about where companies are heading for fresh opportunities. Inflation rates also play a decisive role. While Germany's inflation unexpectedly rose to about 2.6% in December 2024, fueling concerns about the cost of living increases, Poland has managed periods of relative stability thanks to its monetary policies and agile economy. In fact, during various global disruptions, Poland's inflation has sometimes been volatile, but the country has learned to adjust faster, given its experience of taming hyperinflation in the early 1990s. Take the automotive industry, once the lifeblood of Germany's exports. Projections from reputable institutes suggest a 32% drop in German car exports to the United States if new tariffs become a reality. That might be disastrous for Germany, but it could mean an opening for Polish auto parts manufacturers and assembly plants to move into export markets where price competitiveness matters most. The same principle applies to the chemical and pharmaceutical sectors, which could see a 35% reduction in exports to the US from Germany. Meanwhile, Polish chemical production, still on a smaller scale, has grown steadily in local hubs like Płock and Oświęcim, where modernization projects have significantly boosted capacity. There's also the matter of corporate insolvencies. Germany saw roughly 1,300 to 1,400 insolvent partnerships and corporations per month by late 2024, mirroring the grim days of 2009. Poland, by comparison, avoided such a wave, thanks to brisk domestic demand and supportive government measures that cushioned small and medium-sized enterprises. These statistics offer a clear snapshot. Germany's clout as Europe's unassailable economic powerhouse is fading, and Poland, with a leaner and more adaptable framework, is rising to claim a larger share of Europe's industrial and investment pie. Germany's decline and Poland's rise could reshape the balance of power in Europe, but will this trend continue, or is Poland just benefiting from a temporary shift? Let us know your thoughts in the comments. And while Germany is in a downward spiral, the UAE is doing the exact opposite. If you want to learn the insane truth about how the UAE is secretly becoming the richest country in the Middle East, just click here to watch it next. I hope you enjoyed this video, and I'll see you in the next one in just a second.